Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here. We are back with another Pioneer deck tech, and today we're going to be talking about Boros Tokens, a deck that I've been working on for quite some time, but then we got a fantastic upgrade in Tarkir Dragonstorm that's really going to make this deck pop, and I'm really excited to talk about it today. As always, at the end of the video, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this deck? Is there a specific card that I should have put in this deck that I did not? Or do you have suggestions for upcoming videos? Just let me know in the comment section. Okay, so Boros Tokens. I was trying to come up with a good name for this deck, and I figured just Boros Tokens is the way to go with this. It is a token aggro deck that is looking to take advantage of this brand new card, and that card is Shocking Sharpshooter. Essentially, it's an impact Tremors on a creature, which is fantastic. The one thing I really love about this card is how, you know, if you play like multiple impact Tremors, like it doesn't, they don't trigger off of each other, but at least a card like Shocking Sharpshooter, it does, which is kind of cool. It is a slight downside in a way though, because it being a creature makes it more susceptible to different, obviously, removal just in general, but overall, I really love this card. Also 1/3 with reach, like that's also just solid in general. You know, like sometimes like your opponent's Deep Cavern Bats or something can't really attack, they can't attack quite as profitably in the air, and overall it's just a sweet card, and I really do like the Shocking Sharpshooter, and that was the main inspiration for this deck. But we have a couple other sweet Tarkir Dragonstorm cards that are also really good in this deck, so let's just go and hop right into the rest of it here. We have 20 token producers in this deck, so we're playing 4 copies of Stadium Headliner, one of the new cards from Tarkir Dragonstorm. We're also playing 4 copies of Resolute Reinforcements and 4 copies of Voice of Victory, another sweet card from Tarkir Dragonstorm. I really love the Stadium Headliner and the Voice of Victory just because when they attack, you make 1/1 red warriors that are also tapped and attacking. Yes, you do sacrifice them, but it doesn't matter because with all of our Impact Tremors-like effects, it doesn't matter. All these warriors are going to be getting in some extra damage, dealing some extra damage just, you know, to opponents and creatures and such. It's just good. Really big fan of it. Stadium Headliners, really nice activated ability there is also pretty sweet. Sometimes, like, depending on what the attack looks like we can attack and then make a warrior token, and then we can activate this before blocks to maybe deal an extra damage to something. Overall, I really do love the Stadium Headliner. Resolute Reinforcements is just a great card. I mean, it's basically a Raise the Alarm, but it's a creature on top of that. I think I slightly like this better than just more than a card like Raise the Alarm, just because of like cards like Spell Pierce, for instance. But speaking of Spell Pierce, it's not going to matter much if we have one of these in play. Voice of Victory. This card's absolutely incredible. I must say, this card has grown on me quite a bit since the set has come out. I always thought it was going to be just like a solid role-playing card, maybe in a human deck. No, this card is very good. I think I undervalued it a little bit. It has mobilize 2, so when you attack, you make 2 1/1 red warriors, which is just super sweet, and then your opponent's not being able to cast spells during our turn is just so good. But the other token producing cards that we're playing 4 copies of Frontline Rush. Speaking of Raise the Alarm, this card is kind of just better than Raise the Alarm. We make 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, or we have the really nice pump side of it as well. And then we're playing 4 copies of Hordling Outburst. Yeah, the old favorite. There's a reason why I'm playing this over Hop to It, which it'll make sense here in just a moment, just because making the red tokens is more relevant with a specific card that we're playing in this deck. But yeah, it's sweet to just play Hordling Outburst again. I've always thought the card was really cool. It's such a basic card, but it's still really cool. So overall, happy to be playing Hordling Outburst once again in this deck. But next thing we have to talk about are the token payoffs. Why are we making all these tokens? What cards can we maximize by playing all these different tokens? So, we're playing 4 copies of Shocking Sharpshooter and 4 copies of Impact Tremors, obviously. We want to make as many tokens as possible, so that way we can deal as much damage as possible with both of these cards. We are also playing 4 copies of Foundry Street Denizen and 4 copies of Warden of the Inner Sky. So I really love Foundry Street Denizen in the sense that just, you know, whenever another red creature enters the battlefield, which is all the different red creatures that we're playing in the deck, it's just really good. I also love Warden of the Inner Sky in this deck, just because we're going to be making a whole bunch of different tokens with the deck, you know, like Hordling Outbursts and such, and it's nice that we can go ahead and tap them the turn that they have Summoning Sickness, and then we can make the Warden of the Inner Sky a little bit bigger, helpful to our draws a little bit. So overall, it's a really good card, but I'm really excited to play Foundry Street Denizen in this deck. It works so well with all the red warrior tokens. Overall, big fan of the card in the list. All right, so removal. We're playing a little bit of removal in the main board. We're not playing a lot. There's a little bit more in the sideboard, but we're playing 2 copies of Case of the Gateway Express and 2 copies of Conclave Tribunal. So Case of the Gateway Express, I just really love. We make all these different tokens. We can take out pretty much any creature for the most part, as long as we have a decent board state. And then we can solve this very, very easily, and then it'll give our creatures +1/+0. Overall, pretty good card. Conclave Tribunal might seem a little bit weird at first. I was going to play the new Static Snare, but then I realized it can only get rid of artifacts and creatures, and there's a number of good enchantments right now in the metagame that we need to get rid of. So I figured, you know what, Conclave Tribunal might actually be pretty okay. You know, for instance, like Hurling Outburst, and then boom, we just like tap them for, you know, like 3 and then we pay a white. I don't know. It could be pretty good overall. But yeah, that's why I decided to play Conclave Tribunal. We're going really, really wide. I didn't think it was going to be hard to be able to convoke this at all. And it takes care of anything, which is very important in the current metagame. Okay, so that's the entire main board except for the lands, which we're going to hop into right now. I'll be honest with you, it's a pretty straightforward Boros mana base. And we're playing 4 copies of Inspiring Vantage, 4 copies of Sacred Founder, and 3 copies of Battlefield Forge. We're also playing 4 copies of Needle Verge Pathway, 1 Aganjo, 1 Sekenzan, 2 Den of the Bugbear, and 1 Basic Mountain. Our deck is mostly red, and I really like Den of the Bugbear just because, you know, obviously it makes a token when it does attack, so it just kind of fits the entire theme of the deck that's going on there. And as our Spicy Basic Mountain, or Spicy Basic Land of the day, I chose this mountain from Tarkir Dragonstorm. I really love this mountain artwork. Like, honestly, when I think of, like, mountains in general, in Magic, I tend to think of plains like Tarkir just in general, because those mountains are they're very mountain-like. Like, Tarkir has a lot of gigantic mountains on it. It's not even just like necessarily like a desert that we can just kind of call a mountain. Like, there's actual mountains in the plain. And yeah, I just really, really do like this artwork. I think it looks very, very sweet. Okay, so the next thing we have to talk about is the sideboard. As always, the disclaimer is my sideboard might look a little bit different than yours. This is just based off of the local metagame that I personally play against in paper, as well as personally what I run into on Magic Arena. If your sideboard looks a little bit different, that's totally fine. This is just what mine is currently looking like based on the current metagame. Okay, so we're playing 2 copies of Deafening Silence and 3 copies of Rest in Peace, enchantments that I love to feature in every deck that we are playing white on this channel. Deafening Silence is good against all the different spell slinging decks. Rest in Peace just shuts down all of the graveyard decks that we're playing against. I'm playing 3 copies of Windcrag Siege. I thought about playing Urbrass Forge in the sideboard, but I think I really, really like this card with all the different mobilized cards that we have in the deck, just because we can choose Mardu, and then if a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So for instance, with Voice of Victory, we would get to make 4 1/1 attacking warriors, which is pretty sweet. And then the Jeskai side of it is also very good, just because, you know, if we're playing the long game against a lot of removal, we can board these in, and we can make some tokens every single turn, which is pretty sweet. So definitely a huge fan of Windcrag Siege in this deck. We're also playing 2 copies of Invasion of Gobakhan. I really love cards like this in matchups where we need to be a little bit grindier, and then if we transform this, being able to sacrifice it to give our board hexproof and indestructible is pretty solid. I also love 2 copies of Surge of Salvation. It's really just for cards like Pyroclasm and Anger of the Gods. It helps protect our creatures and prevent that damage, which can be very, very good. We're also playing 3 copies of Rip Apart. I wanted cheap removal that can also blow up enchantments, and boom, that is Rip Apart for 2 mana. Just in general, I've always been a big fan of this card in Boros sideboards in general. And yeah, it's just clean. It can answer any early threat, for instance, like a Manifold Mouse or a Heartfire Hero, but then it can also destroy like a Blood Tithe Harvester, and it can also take out an Unholy Annex, that's really the reason why we're playing it in the sideboard. Okay, the next part is tips and strategy. I've got 2 things, terms of if you're looking to play this stack and you want to maximize its potential, or things that maybe you didn't realize right away. Just overall, I love talking about the tips and strategy section here, and let's just go and hop into it. So the first thing I have to mention is prioritize the pingers. I figured this would be pretty obvious when you're playing a deck like this, but you want to get these down as quickly as possible, because that way we start making a whole bunch of tokens, and then we start getting all the different triggers from them, and it's so important to get these down. Like, if you realistically have a hand with like 2 lands and 1 of these in your hand, you're probably going to want to keep that hand most of the time. You want to get these down, make a bunch of tokens, deal a whole bunch of extra damage, and get the game over with. These are extremely important in this deck. I mean, heck, like there's a reason why like Shocking Sharpshooter was the first card in the slide, because it's just that important. And then the second thing I want to mention, because this deck is relatively straightforward, the Frontline Rush, use the pump after blockers. Sometimes I'll see people playing and they like pump one dude and then they attack in, and like our opponent just like chump blocks it, or they have a fatal push or something like that. Try to use Frontline Rush if we already have a whole bunch of tokens. Use this as a pump spell after blockers, so your opponent declares the blockers, and then boom, you can go ahead and sneak this in. They potentially might have a fatal push though, so do keep that in mind, or just any cheap removal, but generally feels good. But hey, if we have a Voice of Victory in play, guess what? It doesn't matter, because your opponent can't cast spells on our turn anyways. So, you know, they set up their blockers, and then boom, we give this thing +6/+6, and then the game is over. Just in general, I'm really happy with Frontline Rush. I think the card is fantastic. And then the last thing we have to talk about here is the budget options for this deck, which is relatively straightforward. Go ahead and swap out Voice of Victory. The card is incredibly strong, and if you really love playing this deck, I highly suggest it, because the card is awesome. You can also play some of the cheaper lands, like the Pain lands, which I know we're already playing 3 Battlefield Forges, but you can go up to 4. You can also play these Snarl lands, like Fury Calm Snarl, as well as the Check lands, which I'm forgetting the name of it, Clifftop Retreat. That is the name of it. Those are some really fantastic budget dual lands to play in this deck. The current list, as it's constructed right now, is only $195 US, which is really, really cheap. The only card that's really of any value in this deck is really just the Voice of Victory. Everything else is really cheap. But I was able to get the budget list down to $56 US. All I did was trim some of the dual lands, swap them out for some budget options, and then play Voice of Victory, or go ahead and swap that out. And that's it. That's all I did. Other than that, you have the entire deck here. But yeah, this deck was so fun to make. I've been wanting to make an Impact Tremors token deck for a while. I know I made that Goblin list a while ago, which a lot of it was just like, we had all these new cool goblins from Foundations, and it was like, oh, hey, Impact Tremors is also back in Foundations. Maybe I'll go ahead and throw that in there. But I wanted to make an Impact Tremors deck specifically, and guess what? We got a creature version, which is arguably better than Impact Tremors. But yeah, overall, this deck was super fun to make, and I was happy to go ahead and share it here on the channel. So let me know in the comment section below if you have a deck like this, or you are looking to play a deck like this, you love the tokens, you love Voice of Victory, or any of the mobilized cards. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Sir Loki, Michael D, our premium channel member, The Common Kolb, and Jeremy P. If you're interested in being a channel member, it starts at $1 US a month, and you get access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.